Everybody, and welcome to the Outside Insider. That's gone well. The camera has gone. No idea where that is. Oh, there we are. We're alive. Sort of intermittent, like the Eagles' offense. That wasn't intentional, but it works, and we're going to discuss all of whatever we've just seen over the last 3 hours, over the course of the next 45 minutes to an hour or so, because there's a lot to dissect. The main thing, first and foremost, is happy Sunday. The Eagles did beat the Browns. Not overly convincingly, though. It was a 20-16 win. It was sloppy in a lot of phases. There was certainly some bright spots, though. But the biggest thing of all is that the Eagles are 3-2 off the bye week. Nick Sirianni remains undefeated off the bye week. And don't we know it after the way he acted following the big A.J. Brown reception. So is what it is. The team win. That's all you can really ask for on a Sunday. To come off of a loss like they suffered against Tampa Bay, they get a get-right spot against Cleveland. They have to make the most of it. It's a franchise in total disarray. Deshaun Watson is washed. The defense ranks near the bottom of everything. They had to win, and they did. It should have been a blowout, though. And this is the thing. Like, it's exactly the same as what happened last year, where we all sat here for ages, for weeks and weeks and weeks, saying, well, they won, but it wasn't convincing. And all the consensus seemed to suggest was that, hey, well, it doesn't matter because the team won. And as long as you win in football games, that's frankly all anyone cares about. As long as you're winning, everything's okay. But I don't think it can just somehow magically mask every issue that you have, be that offensively or defensively. Like we saw a lot of the same tropes that have haunted this team now for the first quarter of the season. Nothing looked overly different. The one thing that did, and I want to start by giving it a massive, massive credit, was Cooper DeJean. I thought CDJ looked absolutely tremendous out there, was making plays all over the field. He had 2 plays that should have been sacks. I wrote an article a few days ago. I was going to stream. I'll touch on that a sec. I was going to stream, I promise, throughout last week. It just got super, super busy, and I didn't have time. So I apologize profusely. I'll be back. We're back tomorrow or Wednesday. We're all good. But I wrote an article. What I was going to do a video on was the Cooper DeJean thing. Like the fact that everyone's quick to jump on Bryce Huff, everyone's quick to jump on Nolan Smith, and the lack of edge rusher production. And the Eagles haven't really had a DB that can generate extra pressure on cornerback blitzes because Avonte Maddox he misses everything tackle-wise. You can't really send him downhill if you miss things when they're stationary. So that's an issue. So they needed someone off the edge to do something, be it Zach Bourne, be it Nakobe Dean, be it an extra cornerback. And I felt that the combination of both Sidney Brown and Cooper DeJean coming back would aid in that. Now, it might not necessarily result in extra sacks, but if it forces tackles, if it forces running backs in those blitz situations to be just a little bit more aware, it might open things up for the likes of Jalen Carter and as we saw today, Moro Ojomo. And I think he's another one that really, really stood out. So Cooper DeJean, his first taste of NFL action that isn't preseason play, I thought he was brilliant. There's not a bad word I can really say about him. There was maybe one play at the end where he's sort of stuck in the mud a little bit. He was sitting in a soft zone. The receiver ran behind him. It was very clear the ball wasn't going there. And there was a guy, I think it was Njoku, coming over the middle on a slant, and he just waited till the very end. But look, that is very much, picking for the sake of picking. There is no need to be anything remotely negative when it comes to Cooper DeJean. I think he was the brightest standout on that field of any Eagles player. Quinyon Mitchell was solid as well. 2 really young, really exciting guys that can very much be the foundation of this team. They're kind of carrying it. Like it's the 3 or 4 young guys on that defense. Jalen Carter's another. I potentially would put Zach Bourne in that conversation, but he's not the typical drafted by an Eagles as a rookie, comes through, like yada, yada. So you've got 3 or 4 players there that long term, I'd like to think, as the scheme just settles in, will contribute more. The issue that we found, as we said, is that just they're not getting pressure off the edge. They're not getting that extra kind of push they need to put guys like Deshaun Watson under pressure. Someone that hadn't thrown for over 200 yards like all season, I don't think, still found a way against the Eagles. And that's a red flag because they need to get more pressure. They took a step forward with Cooper DeJean and a couple of the other guys opening things up, but there's a long way to go on that front. So we'll get to a couple of your comments before we get into the thick of it. Daniel Berry says, happy Sunday. That's a big comment. Well, I mean, look at that for a size. They were never that big a week ago. Ooh, the comments have been going to the gym. You get a full avatar now. So if anyone's mean and you've got your personal face as your profile picture, just know I'm looking and I'm having a look. And I will say you've got a funny nose if you're mean to me. All right. Team also Sirianni survives another week. Let's go. Yeah, we'll get on that in a minute, and the Nick Sirianni reaction after the game, or when that AJ Brown pass was caught, because I'm sure that's going to bring up plenty of discussion over the coming days. Isaac, very, very solid. So we had a game today. True story. Football was indeed played. Two teams were on the field, and a result happened. Sometimes there were touchdowns, sometimes there weren't, and points were scored. That's my synopsis of the game. Sean, you know the song. Na 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 na. I held a bit immediately. That was fucking shit. Fucking shit. That was fucking shit. Now we get that round the link. Booing doesn't do it. They don't respond to booing. We know that. Booing is just a chorus. They're immune to it. We do it all the time. Get a bit of that going on. All right. Next time they're at the link. I think they're on the road next time, aren't they? Against, is it the Giants next week? Or I think it's the Giants. It's at MetLife, whatever. So next time they're at home, I want na 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 na. That was fucking. Just echo it round the stadium. Tyrell says a win is a win. We're off the bye, but this is not good enough. I completely agree. Yeah, just wasn't satisfactory under any circumstance, really. And we'll get to this bit before we get to the Sirianni thing, because I think the Eagles' offense specifically really underwhelmed. And I don't think it's. Okay, I won't say the underwhelmed because they've been exactly the same all year. And this isn't. Underwhelming would imply that, I'm expecting more of them, and I wasn't. So for them to underwhelm, they need to be worse than they even were today. And that would take some doing. So they were right in line with my expectations. But that, again, is the issue, because last week I came on, I hammered the team, I wrote articles, I had a couple of people email me, which is new. I never get emails. And out of nowhere this year, I'm getting like 2 or 3 emails a week from, I presume, middle-aged Eagles fans who think I'm going to reply, I suppose. And they just bombard my email inbox with anger, like I'm on the team, which fair enough, but I'm not. All right, I just wear a gilet and pretend I'm cool. But last week, all the excuses while I was slamming the team was that, but they didn't have AJ Brown and they didn't have Devontae Smith, and that's not very good. And it's like, that's fine, but they weren't the issue. That the fact that he had no receivers to throw to didn't take away from the lack of decision-making, the poorly thrown balls, the terrible offensive line play, the penalties, the awful play calling. Like that's a piece of the puzzle. There's a much bigger picture that is the issue here. And that was very much the case today as well. Now you get these pieces back. You get AJ back, he's fully healthy. You get Smitty back out of concussion protocol. What are you going to do? And the answer is tremendous, if you ask me. Run about the same 3 plays every drive, all game, until one of them works. Like, I know Nick Sirianni shaved his head. I didn't know that he shaved all of his offensive plays with it and just left Kellen Moore with a skeleton of a playbook, because all we saw was a run by Saquon, a short pass, and a deep shot to AJ Brown. Relentlessly the entire game. So it was very fitting that at the end of it, it was AJ's deep shot that cemented the game, because crying out loud, they threw 48 of them. I'm assuming one of them has to land. It's like if you're cold at basketball, you just keep shooting. You're going to avoid bricking one eventually. You're going to get one of them in. You can't be that useless. And that's exactly what we saw. That's one of the worst, I think, called offensive games in a while. Like, it was bad enough, the first drive netting them 5 yards. 5, by the way. And that's not even new. That's like a running thing if the Eagles can't score on a first drive. I can't even move the chains on a first drive this season. But to then go into the second drive and be like, well, let's just do it again. Third drive, yeah, let's do it again. Meanwhile, Grant Colcaterra just breaks off a 20-yard reception. I think we'll speak about him later. I thought he had a very good game, like a couple big flashes there. Probably the most prominent we've seen. And instead of maybe feeding that a bit more, or I don't know, maybe feeding the league's best running back, potentially, arguably, who is decimating everyone in front of him and turning a 3rd and 2 and getting like 7 yards out of it, deep shot AJ again. Just I tell you what we haven't done, AJ, is have you run down the left, like the left-hand side, and I just wow. I haven't done it. Do you want to? We did it 10 minutes ago, Jay. No. We haven't done it in this 10 minutes. We haven't done it this drive. Yeah, that was the last drive. And then he'll drop like an analogy of, well, you know, if you keep spilling beer on the table's not going to get clean of beer itself, beer. And then AJ's going to go, yeah, damn, you're right, actually. So maybe, yes, send it. Go on. Just send me the ball. Give it to me. All game. Or it was these little, like, I don't even know what to call them, because they're very Rams-esque in plays, which I guess you can tell which plays are Kellen Moore. You can tell which plays are Nick Sirianni. That much has been made abundantly clear, because when it's a Kellen Moore play, it'll be a curl or a comeback with intent of the receiver to like spin the other way and turn upfield. And we saw a lot of it in week 1, less of it in week 2. Then it sort of disappeared, and it went what felt like full Sirianni level plays last week, or before the bye even, to now a mix again where you have got someone like AJ catching a pass, immediately turning and running upfield, which we hadn't seen Eagles receivers do. And it's not that they can't, it's just that normally they're catching balls in motion, or, you know, the comeback is designed to stop there and to shield the ball. They're now being asked to turn upfield, to break a tackle, to generate some space. So that's fine. But when it's only a mix of those plays, a couple of runs, a tight end screen, and then a deep shot to AJ all game, it just gets tired very quickly. And this isn't a good Browns defense. That they're not brilliant. They were very beatable. This was the most salvageable game ever to really take by the horns and just plummet into oblivion and get 40, 50 points and make a statement. And instead, the Eagles put up 20 points, which is shocking considering the level of team that they're playing. And when all was said and done, when AJ hauled in that catch, you know, the one that he took 18 attempts to get because they insisted on throwing the exact same play throughout the game, Nick Sirianni walks off, starts talking to Eagles fans, chirping up, saying, like, I can't hear you now. Nick, you've not won a Super Bowl. You've not won a playoff game. You've beat the Browns. You were 8.5-point favorites. You were at home. You have got an offense that is arguably the best on paper in terms of talent in the entire NFC, maybe even the NFL, in terms of just raw playmaking talent. And you beat one of the most disorganized, like, malnourished in terms of talent defenses, to a point where the guy that made the special teams play was Rodney McLeod, who's about 76 years old now and played for the Eagles like 8 years ago. And you win that game against a team that has no business even being in it. You beat a team that could have easily, again, like we saw a couple of weeks ago, just rip the rug right from under them and make something happen. And Sirianni's giving a full Hulk Hogan. He's giving a little bit of The Rock. He's got his arms in the air. And you're just like, what are we doing? If you'd have just gone in and you'd have upset the Chiefs, if you'd have beaten a perennial team, we're talking Lions, you can go into the NFC. I mean, the AFC in itself is a bit of a mess at the minute outside of the Chiefs. I don't think there are many teams that scare me. But I think that's just the case for the league this year in general. But it's not like he's beaten a Bills, a Niners, a Chiefs, a Lions. You beat the Browns. Yeah, that game was a glorified preseason contest from start to finish. The way the plays were called, the lack of execution, the dodgy mistakes, the repetitive play calling. It was vanilla. It was boring. It was a preseason game. And do you know what? Maybe that was the plan, because the Eagles didn't have any preseason snaps in the offseason. So maybe Nick Sirianni went, don't worry, fellas. Your preseason's in week 6 against the Browns. So just warm up for the first few weeks. We've got a bye. We can take some time off. Then we start preseason week 6. And week 1 for us is week 7. And that's when we really kick into gear. Maybe it was that. I don't know. But you cannot. I'm all for passion. I'm all for showing it. Like, someone like Gardner Johnson makes a play, you're all for him, really letting it show. But when you're a head coach who has no responsibility because you physically cannot call plays without bozoing something up, and your only job is to stand there with a shaved head and a new cap and look like a golfer, I don't understand why you have to storm through all of your players, which they're not doing, by the way. They're, cheering on their teammates, watching the game. Your first instinct is to run over to the fans and rile them up as if you've got to prove something to them, because what you've just done is essentially discovered the light bulb. You've not. You've thrown 19 passes down the left to AJ Brown. He's caught one of them and it's won you the game. Congratulations. Now go do it next week. then maybe we can talk. When this team is able to beat Washington, who are currently, I would say, the best team in the division, predicted they might be at the start of the year, then we can talk. When you beat the Cowboys in Dallas, then do it. When you go into the playoffs and you win a wild card game, then do it. But when it's the Browns and you're coming off a defeat like that, and it's a game like that, where the scoring's like that, and the play, and you there is just no, you just can't do it. It doesn't look good optically. Because if that's the benchmark for what extreme success is and how much we need to portray it, and wow, that was incredible. Yeah, where are you now? I don't hear you doubters now. Yeah, that's a hell of a win. If that's the bar, then what's he going to be like when they beat a good team? What's the reaction going to be? Are they going to have pyro in the locker room? Are there going to be beers and ski goggles if they go out and beat the Giants? What is the standard? It's disappointing. And again, I don't want to sound like a boomer and moan about it. I'm all for Nick Sirianni showing his passion. It's kind of the only thing he's got left because he's been stripped of everything else. But I think there's a time and a place. And after a win that could have easily been a loss and you didn't win convincingly in a game you really should have, I just don't think that's overly great. And I'd be keen to hear your thoughts on it. So if you are watching on YouTube, if you're on Twitter, or X, as the cool kids call it now, drop a comment. Let's have a discussion about it, because it is just a weird thing where you want to be cheerful for your head coach and encourage that he's showing that kind of emotion, and also just a little bit like, well, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Yeah, we beat the Browns. They are the Browns. Dysfunctional as they come. One win on the season. Cannot do anything. Offensively, defensively. It was like, it should have been like taking candy from a baby. And now the baby's been screaming and crying, and you've just about got a half-eaten, candy cane out of it, and you're waving it in front of the fans like it's something to be proud of. No. Doesn't fly with me. We'll get to a few of your other comments now. Eagles defense sounded better without Darius Slay. I, for one, am shocked, Timur. I'm sure I hear all about it on his burner account later this evening. But the thing is, like, they've just got too much young talent. Like, Slay and Bradbury should have both been gone this offseason. Like, I said it back then. The only reason that I was against drafting Mitchell was because I knew Slay was there. And you can't drop him into a CB1 spot right away, which I think he's proven he's probably good enough to handle right now. Like, you've got Isaiah Rodgers there. He looked good in the offseason. I know he hasn't exactly done much since through a myriad of reasons, but it is what it is at the end of the day. Like, but you've got guys like Keely Ringo, who was excellent over the summer. You've got Josh Jobe back there. You have got Isaiah Rodgers. There are a few young corners, including Cooper DeJean now. You don't need Darius Slay. Like, just by the deadline. For the love of God, just by the deadline. Please, just boot out the door. Sirianni chirping fan says Kylie is a horrible look for a guy still on the hot seat. Yeah, I agree. It's the equivalent of the 76ers coming. I know they played their team from New Zealand, didn't they, the other day? Like the Breakers, I think, in preseason. It's the equivalent of them, being 30 points down, winning by 3, and doing the same thing. It's, come on, there's levels. Like, you're an NFL head coach. You've achieved a lot. You've won playoff games. You've been to a Super Bowl. You know what a big win is. I don't think that counts as one. But at least you aren't the Saints who just gave up a 50 burger to the Bucks. True, but I'm amazed with how the Saints actually battled back, because they were like, 17-0 down, and then somehow ended up within a score. I think they're even winning at one point, like 27-24. So, they've got some heart. They're just a bit useless, which is like the Eagles, only without the heart. They are just useless and surviving. Gotta break out the Kurt Angle. You suck soon, says Chris. Love that. I think Jalen, says Isaac, stats-wise had his best game. Nolan had a good game, and Mara Ojame was great. Yeah, I tell you what, I think both Nolan and Bryce Huff had good games today. I think both of them stood out on occasion. The only thing I would say with Nolan is that he does, and I don't know if this was the same as rookie year. Like, I can't remember to that detail, but he just does look like he's lost weight. Like, I know he was a bit undersized anyway, and he was just seen as this super, like, explosive, athletic edge rusher that is, a little bit leaner. But he looks like a glorified cornerback out there. And I don't know if that's maybe part of the issue, is that they need him to bulk up and hit the weights and start yamming Happy Meals in his spare time, because I don't know. Like, it's a weird one. I guess it depends, doesn't it, on how he can impact the team. But it's not like you've got a good track record to go off over the last couple of years. Like, this was probably one of the best outings we've seen from him. I'd like to think that can continue. And as I said, I think a lot of that from both Huff and Smith comes down to just the extra cornerback support. Like, if guys have to be wary of fire blitzes and corners coming off the edge, then they're going to naturally give up a little bit more leverage to those defensive ends. And I think that's kind of what we saw today. Zelda Mario 4 says that's a problem when the expectation is to barely scrape by a washed quarterback and a terrible team. I completely agree. But at the end of the day, the reality is what it is. Like, I think the national expectation for this team is that they will magically get right, rip everyone out of the water, and waltz their way into the playoffs as NFC East champions. But I don't think we're now a quarter of the way through the season, like just over that, and I just don't think there's been anywhere near enough to provide like reason other than that they're good on paper. Like, if you were to name me now reasons why the Eagles can go 8 and how many games are left? Like 7-3 the next 10 games they have, what would they be? And that's the thing, because I can't sit here and say, well, Jalen Hurts going to put the team on his back and play outstandingly. Kellen Moore's going to figure out the offense. Vic Fangio's going to figure out the defense. The offensive line isn't going to give up as many penalties. The play calling is going to be a bit better, and defensively they won't miss a lot of tackles. Like, I think there's just too many variables right now. Like, we don't know what this Eagles team is, and I think that's the scary part, is that even now in week 6, we don't know what the Eagles are as a team. Are they a run-first team? Are they like an air raid team? Are they a West Coast team? Defensively, I know we've got the Vic Fangio scheme, but is it that softer shell? Are they being aggressive with blitzing? Do they disguise coverages? Because it's just every week is just this weird mess of a little bit of everything. So it's hard to say. And I think that's why my personal expectations from here are just that they might get 8-9 wins and they'll be all right and they'll get into the playoffs, and they might get bounced out again by someone like Tampa Bay again, who just is a bit more buttoned up. Like, you know what you're getting with Tampa Bay in terms of the run game's pretty solid. The defense is extremely aggressive. Obviously, they're still running that core scheme. Baker Mayfield's having a brilliant year. He's trusting his veteran wide receivers who are doing excellently for him. And there's confidence in the play calling. Like, I can't say that with the Eagles. I can't sit here and say, well, yeah, that the pass rush has been great. The cornerbacks have been outstanding. The wide receivers have been dominant. Like, because each one's got question marks. So it's difficult. I'd like to think expectations will change, as wins start falling. But until that first domino comes down, this was meant to be it. And for me, it wasn't. I just don't think there was enough meat on that bone for me to be satisfied with the meal. We got to be better, said Isaac. The Cowboys scored 33, the Commanders 31. We're more talented than both. And I think that's the frustration. Like, I don't think anyone would mind if this was like 2022 Eagles or like 2021, sorry. Obviously, we know 2022 was the Super Bowl. But if this was like 2022 and it was like the first proper year with Jalen Hurts and you're just getting a new shiny receiver and you're figuring things out and it's a young team, I don't think like a win against the Browns now you'd be quite happy with, because, it's a win for a young quarterback and you're getting confidence as a team. But this is a team that's been to a Super Bowl 2 years ago, that's been into the playoffs each season Sirianni's been a head coach, and has, pound for pound, as you said, like one of the best rosters in football in terms of just talent. So to only beat the Browns by 4 in the way they did, it's worrying. And you're right. With the Cowboys, as bad as they've been, they score points every game. They just end up in awful shootouts and never deliver. The Commanders, gave the Browns... Did the Commanders win? I think they did they? I don't think I want to make sure, but I don't think that... No, they didn't. Okay, they lost by 7. So, but the Commanders gave the Ravens a run for their money. Like, they were winning that game on several occasions. Washington is going to be a problem in this division because they're what the Eagles were in 2022, which is a young quarterback growing in confidence, finding himself with a dominant wide receiver in Terry McLaurin, a defense that's finding his identity, an established backfield of runners, and some great play calling. Like, some really inventive. And it's strange because Sirianni was once like that as a play caller. Like that first year and a half where everything was just spread around nicely. There was different levels, concepts every week. Everything was being distributed as it should. And now everything just feels not desperate. It just feels forced when they're on offense. Like it doesn't feel natural. There's no rhythm to this Eagles offense. It's just like dead run, dead pass, deep shot AJ. Oh, successful run, dead pass, deep shot AJ. Better run again. Then we'll run it again. That doesn't go nowhere. Deep shot AJ. There's no feel for how this game should be being called. And I don't know where that comes from. Well, we all know where it comes from, I think. But yeah, it's just not great. Chris says, I almost broke something when they threw that. Yeah, not pretty. I threw that ball to the end, to AJ at the end. I'll tell you what, that ball to AJ at the end when it was in the air, I was just like, oh, it's 2nd and 8. You've just got to control the clock. Why are you throwing? And AJ pulls down a ball that's like here to his side. Generationally gifted wide receiver to pull that out of his ass and find a ball that is like, it's aimed for a back shoulder and it's come on his front and he's had to turn around and just haul it in at his hip level, essentially, over the shoulder, like into a bucket. Poor throw, tremendous catch, absolutely sensational catch, and one he was looking for all day. But had that not been completed, you just know the discourse after that game on Nick Sirianni just would have been, what are we doing? What is going on? Why are we doing this to ourselves? So, is what it is. Would I consider switching Nolan Smith to Mike linebacker? That's a really good question. I think he'd be better in like an outside linebacker role for the time being. Like we know he's got the athleticism to do it, to move sideline to sideline. I think a Mike, he just might still be, again, like a little bit too small for it right now. I think putting him on that out, because if you have him outside, you can still rush the passer as well. And that might even work to his benefit, giving him more time to pick up speed or to diagnose blocking assignments and find the gaps to slip through. Just having him like off the line of scrimmage and buying him time might work out. So I would definitely move him back to that Zach Bourne-esque role, if you will. It depends. I think it depends on what we see from him and what the team see in him, I think is a big one, because they were very confident this offseason. That hasn't materialized again. That's 2 in a row. Maybe it is time for a change. I mean, maybe a Mike would be good, but we also just haven't seen him in a scenario where he has to be the heartbeat of that defense. Like moving to a Mike linebacker is such a difficult task, because it's not only, your responsibility of either sitting in the zone or blitzing or whatever, but then you've also got to potentially get guys lined up, be the heartbeat of that team. If you drop too deep, there's a big gap between you and the safety, you're exploited. If you drop too far, there's a big gap underneath. Like, you've got to be really keyed in, and it's much more of a mental transition than a physical one. So we'll see. I mean, I think maybe experimenting with him a bit and see if you can drop him back into coverage, because we know Fangio likes to do that, of just moving guys back and bringing in linebackers for that rush. See how he does in those instances. Like, start him over the B gap, drop him back into that kind of just cover drop bit here, and just see how he handles it. How does he look in coverage? Is he going to break on a route? Is he going to sit on his toes? Is he going to get stuck in the mud? These sort of things. And then maybe you go from there and work out what you'd want to do with him. But I could definitely see a transition. I'm just not sure where. I would probably lean to like an outside backer. But we'll see. It's a big thing, and they need to even first work out what's happening with Fangio. Like the long-term trajectory, I think now is obviously that you've got a flurry of young players as well. Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, all on defense that have just signed, what they're midway through their rookie contracts. Cooper DeJean's on one. Quinion Mitchell's on one. Paydays are coming. You've got to work out, if you're not getting the production you want, do you cash in now before that payday comes, or the value diminishes? There's like a whole different realm then of other conversations. So, there's a lot to it, but I could definitely see it happening. I wouldn't bet my house on it, sort of thing. But maybe a little lottery ticket, $20, like 15 leg parlay. I'd be like, yeah, give it a go. We'll see how it lands. David Mertens says, we have a Jalen Hurts problem that can't be ignored. Sirianni's awful, and we know that, but Hurts is a major issue. Again, I don't know, because, I mean, as Isaac said, this was one of his better games this season. Like, it was much more composed. I think he felt pressure a lot better. Like, let's give credit where it's due. I think he really felt pressure a lot better. He didn't take any bad sacks. He didn't risk the ball in terms of protection. He sat down when he needed to. He got the ball out when he needed to, and wasn't afraid of just throwing one out of bounds if nothing was there. Like, those little things compound and they give you a better game. Like, he doesn't have to have played lights out to get that win. He just has to do enough. And that was what he didn't do last time out against the Bucks, and he did it here. So credit where it's due. That's a tough Browns pass rush. You lose Mailata for a bit, so you've got, Myles Garrett against the backup, and you still protect the ball, get the ball out quickly when you need to. You take the deep shots. They weren't overly accurate. It was much more reminiscent of like when he debuted in like 2021, those sort of inconsistent shots over the top. But one of the big one hit, and that's all that really matters. The pass to Smitty was nice. Read that very well to go in for the go-ahead touchdown. So, yeah, like, I still think it's premature on Jalen Hurts. Like, I get it. I get the criticism because he is the quarterback and he's the one making the throws. But at the same time, there's still an emphasis there on, well, the scheme hasn't exactly benefited him. Like, I've just spent 10 minutes talking about the play calling not being great, how they just keep calling these same shots and it's getting a bit predictable. So I don't want to put it all on Hurts because I think that was as solid as we've seen him play this season. And to go from that game and say, well, Hurts wasn't good enough. Like, he might not have been great, but he wasn't bad. Like, that was, if you were to grade out a 10, that's like a 7.5, maybe, if you're being generous. Like, that's nowhere near worrying. Like, that was a solid day out for Jalen Hurts. Did what he needed to do. Didn't make any dumb mistakes. Wasn't careless with the football. Made surgical throws when he had to. And spread the ball around to different guys. Look at Grant Calcaterra getting involved in the offense. On a day where Dallas Goedert goes down, he didn't move away from the tight end position. If anything, he went there a little bit more. We know he's got a bit of chemistry with Calcaterra from their time at Oklahoma. That's started to show through a little bit now. Like, it's been a couple moments over the last year or so of Calcaterra just getting a catch and turning it into extra yards. So there was more to like than dislike from a Jalen Hurts perspective tonight. I think the main worry for me from today's game is still play calling. Like, it's still play calling. Like, offensively, it's too predictable. It's too vanilla. It's just vanilla with motion. It's vanilla with an ice cream sprinkle. It's still vanilla. You've not changed the flavor to blueberry. It's not brightly flavored. It's just vanilla with a sprinkle on it. So that's my main concern. But I do understand it, given the last few weeks. Jay Fizz coming in with the heaters says, at this point, do you personally give Nick Sirianni another season as head coach? No. For me, no. But, I'm viewing it very much as if I was in charge of the team, and my only experience is Madden, where, fuck it, get him gone and we'll bring in someone else. And it's hard because we don't know what the players respond to him like. All we get are like media whispers. All we get are what happens on the field. Now, if you're going off on the field production, I would have fired him after the game against the Bucks. And give it to Kellen Moore, give him the offense properly, let him call things his way and build the offense he wants, and then see what happens. But we kind of know what we get with Sirianni now. I don't think anything is an overly big shock anymore. It's just a lot of the things that we're now annoyed by, we weren't because they were winning in years past. When they were 10-2 last year, no one cared he was goofy. When they were in a Super Bowl in the year before that, no one cared that he was a little bit overzealous when it came to reacting to fans. But now the team isn't where it should be. All of these things add up. And when you factor in that he doesn't have any real control over the offense anymore, and then he's just sort of there as a morale guy and someone to hype the team up, I don't think they lose that much other than the morale bit. And we don't know how valuable that is. I think that comes down to the leadership group, like in the locker room. Like, how good are the veteran leaders at keeping people engaged, getting them out of trouble? Guys like Gardner Johnson, guys like Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, who can build the team around themselves, get them out of a dodgy situation, and just get the headspace right. Because if that is what Nick Sirianni does best, and that works, and the players respond to him, then maybe, yeah. And maybe ride with the coordinators until they figure it out. But if it keeps going downhill and the players aren't responding and the execution continues to fail, then yeah. I think at this point, for me, he doesn't make next season. but you give him the end of this year after that win. And it wasn't a good win, but it was a win. And a win, unfortunately, to a lot of people in the NFL is enough. Like, winning matters. It's all that matters. Winning sells you tickets. Winning buys you, championships. So, yeah, I think so long as Sirianni can keep grinding out wins, he'll be here. I wouldn't be shocked. Even if the team make the playoffs, I would likely make a change unless they make a Super Bowl. But then you're kind of stuck with it again. So it's going to be a very weird relationship with Nick Sirianni over the next 12 months because you're kind of like, itching to see a change. You're itching to see what someone else can do with a team this good. And half of you is then being very hesitant and sat there going, well, no, he's made the playoffs for you. And doing that kind of Jeffrey Lurie-esque read on it, which is taken us to 3 playoff appearances, taken us to a Super Bowl. He's got all of these players. The players love him. He's very passionate about football. That feeds off into the locker room. He's a high culture guy, and that will pay dividends. So there's 2 mindsets there. You either... Well, what's that phrase? Like a wise sailor... I saw it in House of the Dragon. It was like a wise sailor sets sea before the storm hits, or something like that. If I was a wise sailor, I would jump ship right now. I don't think the Eagles are being very wise, and they're just going to trudge through the storm and just hope there's a rainbow at the end of it when it comes to Nick Sirianni. I think that is the best way to look at that situation, but we'll see. Jay Fizz also says nothing the team does on either side of the ball looks smooth or consistent, and that's the main thing. Yeah, completely agree. I know I echoed that sentiment a little bit before, but yeah, totally agree that nothing feels like a rhythm. There's no broader plan. That there is no, hey, it sounds really silly, right? But even when I'm writing articles pre-game, okay, like let's say I'm previewing the game against the Browns, I'd go, well, look, they're near the bottom of the league in sacks. They're not very good in terms of pass defense. They're all right against the run. You're immediately going, well, quick passes because they can't get pressure. They're really bad against short yardage. Look at what they, give up to tight ends every week and make it work. And that's just me. That's 10 minutes of to write an article. You're a head coach. Your whole job of watching film. What are you watching on film all week? To go out there and do the exact same thing week after week. That's what I don't get. Because every team's different. And every team has different strengths and weaknesses. And they all evolve or devolve from week to week. You look at a team like the Commanders, for instance, who are rolling. I know they just lost to Baltimore, but the way the offense has changed, even since week 1, it's looking flamboyant now. They've got motion everywhere. They've got screens. They've got swings. They've got little zip outs. They're flying. They don't know. It's just vibing around, running in circles, doing a little do-si-do before the snap. Just pure creative flair. And that's kind of, I think, what we fooled ourselves into with Kellen Moore, maybe not realizing how much he'd be able to do or not do with Sirianni still around. So I don't know. You're right. There is no plan. If you look at the Giants next week and you see what they do well, what they don't, the secondary's hurting a bit. They gave up, a chunk of yards to Geno Smith, allowed a lot of yards to Tyler Lockett. You're immediately then looking for a slot weapon. Do you then start looking at tight ends and getting them the ball? And I guarantee it's the same game plan of Saquon Barkley running for 2 yards, a pass over there out of bounds, and a deep shot to A.J. Brown. And that's the issue at its core. It doesn't matter who they're playing, what the situation is, that it's the same thing, just repeated. And the definition of insanity for the Far Cry 3 lovers is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. What if bold Sirianni goes undefeated and we just win like this? Well, look, I tweeted earlier, okay, and I probably got a bit overzealous, but I said if the Eagles win 4 in a row, I will shave my head to honor Sirianni. So, I mean, the hairline is going anyway. We have all agreed that for some time now. It's only just grown long enough to properly slip back again. It's been a horrible couple of months. The barber absolutely scalped me. But you can see, look at that, look. A little pocket in there. I could hang my car keys there. Yeah? Lovely. I can put my wallet in there. I look like a Play-Doh character where you just squeeze the head down and the hair pops up and comes out of it. It's disgraceful. So if the Eagles do win 4 in a row, I will shave my hair. Probably. Tyrell says, let's get it over with. Let's get it over in the wild card. Probably both count. Hire Joe Brady and draft Harold Perkins for my mental health. I would love Joe Brady. I remember, I think when he was first coming out of LSU, I think a lot of people on PSN were keen to try and snag Joe Brady in any capacity they could. And that didn't happen, which sucked. But he's only got better, I think, since back then, which was what, the Joe Burrow year? It must have been. Was it the Natty year? It feels like forever ago, doesn't it? That Joe Burrow Joe Brady came out as a coach. But yeah, I think it was around then. But I would love Joe Brady on this team. I know there are a couple names being linked, but that's the other thing. Like, you can't jump out the pan into the fire, as the saying goes. Like, it's great that a lot of people don't want Sirianni to be the head coach. But if you fire him now, for instance, you've got to find someone to hop in and get this team rolling instantly. And that's not easy. Like, that's a tough job for anyone. And then you start looking to the older head coaches, the Mike Vrabels of the world, who would be a good hire. Like, I would be all for a Mike Vrabel, hiring in Philadelphia, but they've got to get it right. Like, if you're going to walk away from a head coach that realistically has got you to the playoffs 3 years in a row, does have a great roster, does have a rapport with the city to a point, and the players, you've got to get it right. And it can't just be a fire and a hire for the sake of it. It has to be with reason. So unless there is a dream candidate that's just magically waiting and they've got a reason to pull the trigger, don't. You don't go from greener pastures into potentially murkier ones just because you're scared those will go murky. Because you just never know. So, I would be all for Joe Brady. I would 100% love it. But I can see him getting to the offseason, unless something goes wrong. Let's have a look. Here's something fun. The streak to AJ wasn't audible by Hurts. Oh, well, now I just feel terrible. Well, I mean, fair enough. I mean, maybe we can exclude that one from the rule. But if they all were, which could be possible, then maybe that's also another issue. But yeah, it's a thing, like whether it was an audible or not, they still called that same play about 17 times. So I'm glad one of them worked. I'm glad it was Jalen's call. I don't mind the fact the quarterback is making calls that work rather than a head coach or an offensive coordinator making them that don't. So I'll allow him that one, and I won't rant about the AJ Brown deep shots for too much longer. What's up, Dirk? Nice to see you, my friend. I hope you had a good weekend. They're still slow going. Sirianni needs to go. This should have been a double-digit win. Not this is just getting by. Yeah, completely agree. I think you've echoed all of our sentiments in a very concise format there. Yeah, it just wasn't enough. I don't think, and that's what I think grates on a lot of people when looking at the Sirianni reaction to fans post-game, is that wasn't a good win. That the bare minimum was winning. Like, the bare minimum. As in, like, when you get home from work, you cook dinner. You have a shower before bed. You eat breakfast when you wake up. Like, we're talking bare minimum. It's not like overzealous expectations here. Winning was the absolute bottom of the barrel result here for this team. And a loss would have been catastrophic. And it could have been. That special teams play was horrific. I mean, I say horrific. It was a massive prop to Myles Garrett for doing what he did, because the guy is an absolute freak of nature. But special teams have been an issue all year. Players keep running into each other, and now they're giving that up. How much of it you put on Garrett being incredible, how much of it you put on a special teams unit that has struggled for 3 months now, it feels like it is down to individual interpretation. But special teams have sucked. Defense, like, I don't know what happened with Deshaun Watson towards the end of the game, but he came out and went like 11 for 12, I think. Was 11 for 11 before the Chauncey Gardner-Johnson moment, which was huge in terms of momentum. But again, second half, like, the Browns just sort of realized, all right, well, this is how we can get past these. And they started to. And they had a couple of big stands, notably down where it mattered, to get themselves out of trouble. And a credit to the defense for doing that. But you are talking about one of the coldest quarterbacks in the NFL, like Deshaun Watson. Okay. And just for context, I'm going to read out his game log here from the last 5 weeks, because we've had 5 now that he's played. Let me just find this a minute. All right. So against the Eagles, he had 168 yards. He had 125 v Washington, 176 v Las Vegas, 196 v the Giants, 186 v the Jags, and 169 v Dallas. The guy hasn't thrown for over 200 yards all game. His highest passer rating came against Philadelphia. This isn't a Browns team with a dominant run game that they used to have. They were better when they were rotating quarterbacks every other week last season. one of the worst, if not the worst starting quarterback currently in the NFL. Almost diced you up at the end. And I don't have the exact stats. It's going to take some digging to get them. I wonder how many of them came in that little second half rally. Because he can't have been on much before then. So it's staggering that it almost got to that. Like, had Deshaun Watson not been quarterback, had that been Baker Mayfield's Browns, had that been literally anyone else's Browns, put Josh McCown in there at this point, put Case Keenum back there, put Mark Sanchez back there. Anyone else, that's a narrow 1 to 2 point game with the Browns sneaking a win potentially. Deshaun Watson simply being Deshaun Watson tilted that in favor of the Eagles dramatically. Like, there is no way the Browns can be getting anywhere close to winning games throwing 150 yards on average a game. And yet they still did. Not good. Jameis Winston could probably beat us. Jameis. Oh, is Jameis the backup? Well, put him in. Luckily not today, because that would have been horrible. But, you know, thanks for putting him in next time and hopefully proving us right, because I mean, again, it's not like the Browns have a bad team on paper. Amari Cooper, Jerry Jeudy, I forgot he was even there. The run game's all right to a point. Defensively, they've got a few big players. And not a bad team, just not executing, which is, they're sort of like a lesser Philadelphia, like a Walmart version of the Philadelphia Eagles to a point. Minus the franchise quarterback. They definitely do not have one of those. But we're going to end it there. I've got to save some meat on the bone for tomorrow's stream, which will be, what time do I do it? 5 p.m. Eastern. There we go. Again, apologies for not streaming last week. It has just been a bit of a busy week on my end, so I appreciate your patience. But look, I've been doing it now for over a year again, and I've not deserted everyone yet. So I'll keep coming back, I promise. If I have a week off, it's never intentional. I know I took the bye week off, but the week after that, it was just super busy in the evenings. I didn't really have time to sit. So I will be back tomorrow. We'll go over the game in a bit more detail and talk about the rise of Cooper DeJean. I'll try and maybe get my hands on some film if it's out and we can break over that. But yeah, I appreciate you all hanging out. Thank you so much for hopping in to some post-game therapy. It's always fun talking shop. A shout to Ray Gonzalez and E-Money Bentley for liking the show on Facebook. If you haven't liked it on YouTube, if you could do so on your way out, when you put your popcorn in the bin, that would be absolutely sensational. From myself, Liam Jenkins, I will see you guys tomorrow evening to go over more of the game in a bit more detail, go over maybe some quotes and reactions from the coaches and the players. We've actually got Brian Cameron at the Lincoln Financial Field now. I believe, hopefully getting a couple quotes or two himself. So that'll be interesting. But yeah, Brian's there covering the game, which is tremendous. So hopefully we can get some content out of that for you guys as well. But until tomorrow, enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Let's all root for a Dallas loss. That will be the ultimate cap on, the cherry on the cake. The Commanders lose, the division's back open. If the Cowboys lose as well, all is right in the world, and we can focus on a journey to MetLife Stadium next week. So from myself, Liam Jenkins, take care. Go Birds. I'll see you soon.